I know a few good stories. They take place in a corner of America that might seem familiar, yet still manages to surprise. The settings are spectacular, the characters compelling, the action exciting, the plot lines unpredictable. I'm Tom Richardson. Join me as I explore New England's great outdoors, from Candlewood Lake, Connecticut to Caribou, Maine, from the beaches of Cape Cod to the peaks of New Hampshire's White Mountains. The stories are waiting. Let's live them on Explore New England. Explore New England is presented by your New England Ford dealers, your local REI co-op. REI believes a life outside is fundamental to a life well lived. Campers Inn RV and visitnewengland.com. Additional funding and support for this episode was provided by Northwater Marine, Hermit Woods Winery, Path Resorts, and ECAL Activity Center. It's no secret that mid-October is a splendid time to enjoy the outdoors in New Hampshire's Lakes region. The days are crisp and cool, perfect for hiking, and the foliage is usually at its peak. But if you're a boater, there's an added reason to head for the lakes, as aquatic traffic in October is minimal, a far cry from the busy summer months when the water is jammed with powerboats, jet skis, and all manner of human-powered craft. One person who appreciates this quiet time of year is Jonathan Thurston of Northwater Marine in the Weirs section of Lake Winnipesaukee. Jonathan's grandfather started the full-service marina and boat dealership, formerly known as Thurston's, in 1972, so he comes by his passion for the water naturally.
Boating is absolutely in my blood. I've been very fortunate to have had the opportunity to grow up on this lake. My family's been here since 1972. As a child growing up, we were essentially the sub-25 horse lake pirates. We had an absolute blast, and the lake was our playground.
Located just inside the entrance to Paugus Bay in Laconia, on the southern shore of Winnipesaukee, Northwater also offers a fuel dock and boat rentals, and is an ideal spot for launching excursions on New Hampshire's largest water body, especially for boaters staying in the Weirs area. While today the Weirs is best known for its sandy beach and tourist attractions, for thousands of years it served as an important fishing area for native Abenaki Indians. Indeed, the Weirs gets its name from the man-made structures used by the native Abenaki to capture shad as they migrated into Paugus Bay. These days, the Weirs is perhaps best known as the seasonal home of the Mount Washington, a former paddle steamer that now operates as a popular tour boat. The mailboat Sophie C., the oldest floating post office in the country, is also berthed at the Weirs and available for tours. As even the casual visitor to Lake Winnipesaukee will note, pontoon boats are exceptionally popular, and for good reason. Northwater Marine sells a lot of them, and Jonathan and I headed out on a new coach model bound for the town of Wolfeboro in the southeast corner of the lake. Our route took us past the Witches, a large rocky shoal that has proven the bane of many an unwary boater over the years, even though it's well marked. Boaters more familiar with the red and green coastal navigational aids are often flummoxed by the spar buoy system used to mark hazards and channels on Winni and other large lakes. Solid red and black buoys indicate channels, so steer between them. Black or red top buoys, on the other hand, indicate hazards such as rocks and shoals. Keep north and east of black top buoys and south and west of red top buoys. Waterproof maps of the lake detailing all of the depths and hazards are available online and at select marinas. Shortly after passing the Witches, we entered the wide open portion of the lake known as the Broads. Boaters in small craft should watch the weather closely before crossing this area, as strong winds can stir up large seas. In summer, keep a weather eye out to the west, as thunderstorms can develop quickly over the surrounding mountains, taking many boaters by surprise. After crossing the Broads, we arrived at a protected series of bays and a postcard-perfect waterfront scene, Wolfeboro. Here we are in Wolfeboro, man, and this is like the quintessential Winnipesaukee town, right?
It absolutely is. It's the oldest historic resort town in America, founded in 1770.
Wow.
It's absolutely beautiful.
What's this big campus over here?
On our right is Brewster Academy. It's another fantastic campus, and as you can see, they're very fortunate to have that location.
So Wolfeboro, so you can bring your boat here, and there's public docks?
There are public docks. They do have I believe it falls under a 6-hour time limit.
Oh,
but
there's plenty of time.
That gives you plenty of time to explore all the great things that the town Wolfeboro has to offer.
What's the most amazing thing is it's a beautiful fall day. There's like nobody on the water.
It is. It's absolutely, we're very fortunate. And these are some of the best times to be out in the water. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful area.
And what's Garwoods?
Garwoods is another classic Wolfeboro staple. You're able to access it via the docks, and they have a number of, they have the decks that allow you to sit on the bay and
just taking the view, right?
Lunch and dinner.
Beautiful.
So, and then through the bridge on the backside as well, falls out to Back Bay. And that's a whole separate section. You want to make sure you have a low profile boat if you are going to be getting out there.
Not a lot of clearance there.
Not much at all. Also, it's a great spot. Every year is held the Antique Boat Regatta.
In Wolfeboro.
In Wolfeboro. And that's when you see all the docks filled with these beautiful classic boats and fully restored. And they go out and you'll see them all running. Even sometimes it's the only time they'll be out on the water, but it's definitely something to see.
Oh, that's cool. While I would have loved to go ashore and explore Wolfeboro on foot, that would have to wait, as Jonathan wanted to show me another part of the lake. Some 15 minutes after leaving Wolfeboro, we entered Alton Bay, a long, narrow finger of water on the very southern part of Winnipesaukee. So Alton Bay is just a really long, straight section of the lake, right? In the southeast, the very southeast portion of Winnipesaukee.
It's another one of the lake communities. The bay itself, it's so straight that it ends up doubling as a runway in the winter.
Oh, so when it freezes over, they land, it's like a landing strip here?
Exactly. And if you look off the bandstand, they have the sock, windsock, that allows the pilots to determine their angle of approach. So once this freezes over, there'll be bob houses going on up and down both sides with a runway in the middle.
So the bob house is like ice fishing shacks?
Exactly.
And the runway's right in the middle of it.
That is correct.
So you can fly into your bob house if you so choose.
Certainly could. It's always an option.
In terms of accommodations, there are no shortage of options in the Lakes region. On my mid-October trip, I stayed at the Center Harbor Inn, on the very northern end of Lake Winnipesaukee. The Art Deco hotel offers clean, comfortable rooms with private balconies, a beach, boat dockage, water toys, a spa, and a complimentary breakfast. It's also close to several restaurants, as well as the town of Meredith. Living lakeside is hard to beat, but if you seek a location that's a bit more elevated and offers a commanding view of the lake, consider curious Kimball Castle, the former summer estate of railroad magnate Benjamin Ames Kimball.
So he was the president of the Boston, Maine, Montreal Railroad, and he built this as a summer home. So he was on vacation in Germany on the Rhine, and he looked up and saw a castle, and he was a world traveler, and he felt that this was the most beautiful spot in the world he'd ever been to. So he hired 100 stone masons from Italy to come over and build the castle. We were looking for a property to turn into a wedding and event center that had something unique, something with a view, something where the public wasn't wandering through, something with rooms to stay, and this kind of checked all of those boxes. So once we saw it, we couldn't unsee it. And it took a little while, but we still pinch ourselves that we own this property because it's so beautiful up here.
The 20-acre property was purchased in 2018 by local realtors Melissa and Patrick Starkey, who set about upgrading the innkeeper's cottage and turning it into an upscale B&B.
So the innkeeper house was built the same time as the castle, and so when we purchased the property, it was just a seasonal, more of a camp. So we renovated the inside, refinished the floors, painted, decorated, repurposed some of the rooms, and now we rent it out to Airbnb. So the public, we are working towards opening a wedding and event center here. So the idea is when we have weddings here, the wedding party will be able to stay on site after their ceremony. And proceeds from that, we will then put back into restoring the castle.
While the Kimball Castle estate offers spectacular views for its guests, there are plenty of other spots in the lakes region where the public can get a bird's-eye view of the surrounding countryside. One of the most popular is Mount Major, which makes for a short half-day hike suitable for kids and even pets. I visited the mountain with Jonathan Thurston, who serves on the Lakes Region Search and Rescue Team and is intimately familiar with all of the local trails. Visitors should note that the official lot off Route 11 fills up quickly, so you'll often need to park alongside the road if you get a late start. Two trails lead to the summit, the more popular being the Mount Major Trail, likely because of its name. Jonathan and I took the less heavily traveled but slightly more strenuous Boulder Loop Trail, parts of which lead over and around massive glacial erratics. After a brief 1.6-mile climb, the trail arrives at the exposed summit, where you'll find the foundation of a cabin built in 1914 by George Phippen to serve as a shelter for hikers. The views of the lake and surrounding countryside are breathtaking from the summit, but be prepared for cold, windy conditions, especially in the fall and spring. After spending some time gazing down on Winnipesaukee from Mount Major, I returned to lake level, this time for a kayak trip with Pat Tarpey, Executive Director of the Lake Winnipesaukee Association. After picking up a rental kayak from the ECAL Activity Center in Meredith, I met Tarpey at Harilla Landing in Wolfeboro, where we set a course for Ragged Island, approximately 1 mile south. So Pat, tell me about the Lake Winnipesaukee Association.
So we are the local lake association dedicated to keeping this water clean and healthy so that people can continue to enjoy it, you know, tomorrow and the future generations as much as we do today.
That's as much as we're doing right now.
Right.
So Pat, how do you go about keeping this huge lake clean?
We do it a number of ways. So through monitoring, we actually collect lake samples to tell us how the lake's doing, education programs, and then science and restoration projects. So a lot of education is just trying to get people to understand the whole land use water quality connection, that what they do on the land is really impacts this lake. So for example, this summer we were doing a Be Winnie Blue and Lake Smart program where we visited homeowners, walked their properties and gave them recommendations and improvements they could make to reduce stormwater runoff.
Right, and what are some improvements a homeowner could make?
Increasing, say, a vegetation buffer along the lake. You know, the biggest issue is stormwater runoff and all the nutrients and sediment that carries. So phosphorus is the limiting nutrient for freshwater systems. And so for this lake, any additional phosphorus can result in algal blooms and cyanobacteria.
How is the water quality faring in recent years?
Overall, we saw a huge increase in, say, phosphorus levels the last 20 years. It looks like it's starting to level off.
While most of Winnipesaukee shoreline is privately held, Ragged is a noteworthy exception. The 11-acre island is one of 5 public islands on Winni managed by the Lakes Region Conservation Trust. Paddlers are welcome to beach their craft along Ragged's 2 sandy beaches, while powerboaters and sailors can tie up at one of the docks on the southern end. 2 of the docks were once covered by a boathouse used by Ragged's former owners, renowned composer and conductor Wheeler Beckett and his wife Jane. The couple purchased the island in 1936 and summered there until 1978, when Wheeler deeded the property to a youth education group. The Becketts lived in the cottage that still stands on the southern tip of the island, and which now serves as a venue for natural history presentations and group outings.
So probably about 20 years ago, I was tired of my job, wanted a career change, and believe it or not, I joined AmeriCorps. And so, no money, but started working for the Belknap County Conservation District and had wanted to get into environmental stuff, and through that got connected with Lake Winnipesaukee Association. So I've worked off and on for 20 years for them, and now in my current position for 10. You know, I moved up here 30 years ago. I didn't necessarily want to come to New Hampshire, but after a while I fell in love with it and fell in love with this lake. It's just absolutely beautiful, and it deserves protecting, and it needs protecting.
My visit to Ragged put me in mind of another Winnipesaukee island that also offers public access. Located in Meredith, the much larger Stonedam Island can be reached by boat, canoe, and kayak, and I had a chance to explore it with Dave Mallard of the Lakes Region Conservation Trust back in the spring of 2019. After launching our kayaks at Cattle Landing, we made the roughly 2-mile paddle to Stonedam's northeastern shore, which features a dock that can accommodate boats up to 25 feet. A few steps away from the landing, nestled in the woods, was an old cabin. Built in the mid-1800s, the historic structure was originally part of an old homestead on Alton Bay. After being used by a children's camp for a number of years, it was moved to Stonedam in 1985, and now serves as a venue for cultural and natural history presentations.
Well, Stonedam Island is unique in a lot of ways. For the Lakes Region Conservation Trust, this was the first major project that the trust completed, meaning the first big property that they owned. Did a campaign to raise the money to purchase it. The land trust formed in 1979. This property was purchased in 1982. We have 25,000 acres in conservation. About 18,000 of that we own. The other is conservation easements. So I oversee the monitoring of our conservation easements, make sure that the terms of those easements are being upheld, and we monitor those easements every year.
From the cabin, Dave and I set out on the loop trail that skirts much of the island and winds through stands of hemlock, beech, white pine, and red oak.
So David, tell me about these holes in this tree.
Well, those are from, would be the pileated woodpecker.
The big ones.
Yeah, the big one with the red head. Judged by the size and the spacing of the mining.
Yeah.
And they're going for the insects and the insect larvae in the bark.
Sure. Wow, they make quite a hole, huh?
Yeah. What's
bird.
interesting is that when they mine holes like this, sap will drip out of the cambium and fill this, and insects are drawn to that, so they'll be able to come back, eat the insects that are drawn to the sap.
It's like a trap.
Yeah, kind of.
No kidding.
Deer, mink, squirrel, and even the occasional bear visit the island. And if you study the forest floor carefully, you might spy one of the resident toads, salamanders, frogs, or garter snakes.
One of the more unique natural features on this island is way up here on the summit is this year-round freshwater pool of water. It's a large vernal pool, and it stays wet all year round.
Really? Yeah, even during the summertime?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
And so it holds water all year round, and it's a a breeding area for all kinds of amphibians.
Salamanders, newts.
Salamanders, wood frogs, tree frogs.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Little hidden gem up here.
Absolutely.
Having completed our short hike around the island, Dave and I found ourselves back at the little cabin, ready to begin our return trip to Cattle Landing. After a day spent paddling, hiking, biking, and boating, many Lakes Region visitors like to unwind and refuel at one of the many local restaurants or brew pubs. But if it's fine wine you seek, there's only one place to go: Hermit Woods Winery and Deli in Meredith.
Chuck's an airline pilot, Ken's a geologist, and I'm a photographer. And the three of us came together and we started the hobby of making wine together. And that hobby got way out of hand. And around 2010, we realized that maybe we were onto something here, something more than just a hobby. And we turned that hobby into a business.
This unique winery creates its award-winning wines from local fruits, honey, and flowers, including blueberries, apples, elderberry, beech rose, strawberries, and rhubarb. I got a tour of the place from Bob Manley and Ken Hardcastle, who, along with Chuck Lawrence, started the business in 2011.
So Ken, this is like where all the magic happens, huh?
Yeah, this is the place.
I love it. It's like some sort of mad scientist's like basement. You got these, I don't even know what that is, but I'll find out.
Yeah.
And then you got all these like, I don't know, test tubes and beakers and probably a Bunsen burner somewhere. Yeah, wow, it's a pretty cool setup down here. So this is where you like you work your magic.
This is where it all
right?
happens. So all the wine that's produced at Hermit Woods is done downstairs here.
Unlike conventional grape-based wine production, Hermit Woods is dedicated to crafting fine wine, mead, and cider out of what grows naturally in New England. They essentially build a grape using combinations of locally available ingredients to achieve a target wine style. Most are barrel-aged dry wines reminiscent of classic grape-based wines, but with their own unique, locally driven character.
And it all starts here. This is a batch of wine which is made out of local sprayless raspberries that are grown at a local farm. This goes ultimately into a dry red wine.
So tell me how it works. Okay, so you got the juice.
So wine is a really natural process. So if you've ever seen a plum or a cluster of grapes, there's like a white dusty coating. That's actually a microbe on the outside of the fruit, on the skin. And it's a type of yeast, principally. So to make wine, classically out of grapes, you take those grapes and you stomp on them. There's some way to break the skin open, allowing that microbe to come in contact with the sugar. The byproduct is alcohol and carbon dioxide gas. And then the wine sits for a series of months or years, maturing.
As with grape-based wines, Hermit Woods uses classic winemaking procedures. Once the fruit has been fermented and the sugars have been converted to alcohol by yeast, a wine strainer or press is used to capture the liquid. This young wine then ages and is enhanced for many months or years in large stainless steel tanks or oak barrels. Hermit Woods uses both American and French toasted white oak wine barrels, and each imparts its own unique characteristic to the wine. Once the wine is aged, it's sometimes blended and or filtered, transferred to bottles, corked, and ready to enjoy. While Ken works his magic on the lower level, the fruits of his labor are available upstairs to enjoy at the main tasting bar, while listening to live music in the loft tasting room, or on the open deck outside. Hermit Woods also features a deli where you can purchase gourmet sandwiches, paninis, and salads to enjoy with your wine, or a locally brewed ale.
One of the most amazing things that I really enjoy is when you have somebody coming from California or France or Italy, where people think about wine a lot more than we do in New Hampshire. And we give them an opportunity to try wine made here in New Hampshire, made from the fruit that's grown here in New Hampshire, and you can see their eyes popping out of their head because they're like, wow, I thought wine had to be made from grapes. And when you can turn somebody on to something new and something different, it's pretty special. And now we're opening up a music venue where we're going to have a listening room, where we're going to invite artists from all over the world to come here and play in a listening room environment where the audience remains quiet and you get to hear some really top-notch talent from 10 feet away. And so I'll have everything then. I'll have music, wine, food, and what else can I ask for? And then when the night is over, I'll go out tomorrow and go skiing or snowshoeing or mountain biking in the beautiful great outdoors. So it doesn't get any better.